This is an audio check for our Into Being folks. Check me and check your audio.
I can hear you.
Yep.
Check.
I can hear you, Rick.
Thank you.
All right.
Is your webcam image jumping and tearing?
I think I fixed it there.
Okay.
Be getting started in just about 2 minutes. All right, good afternoon and welcome to COVID Connect. It's April 3rd, 2020, and I'm joined by Aaron Kerr, Rick Routson, Adrian Harris, and Steve Minus, all helping to back me up as we do this thing that the community has come together for. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you to all the folks who first responded to the call that I put out a week or two ago now and got the word out to start the very first of these. This is now the third time we're getting together to share information primarily about the FDA's emergency use authorizations, but also about what you guys are doing in the community, what the community is doing to support each other and to combine resources. We've got manufacturers, healthcare systems, material suppliers, innovators, everybody coming together, and it's really been fun to watch. So please note, the webinar will be available. No need to ask about that. The last two are available on our website at intobeing.com. Please use the chat box to communicate with each other and to get your questions out there, to tell people about yourself. It's fine to put your company's information and contact information in there. Please do. In fact, today we're going to be rereading back a few of those just to make sure that people know who's out there doing what. Get off of mute if we make you live during the community open forum. Make sure you're not on mute. And you are on mute until I say you're authorized to talk, and then we'll push that button. And when you talk, please keep it brief. Your name, your company, your needs, your efforts, and your ideas. We want to hear all of those. What Into Being does normally is help startups with medical device development and FDA interactions. And so just reach out now and let us know where you're stuck. We can help with introductions. We can quickly and freely give you get unstuck explanations. I don't know how many times I've been on the phone with folks over the last week just trying to answer some of these questions, and we're happy to do that. And if you do need more in-depth technical development and regulatory support, that's what we do every day, so feel free to reach out. So here's the agenda for today. We're going to give you the latest news. We're going to do a little bit of leftover Q&A that didn't get answered on 331. We're going to talk about the community's resources and needs as you guys have expressed them to us. Then we're going to talk about two completely new updated emergency use authorizations from FDA or guidances for face masks and materials coming from China, as well as face mask enforcement guidance. Those are both new as of today, so we'll be talking about those shortly. Then we promised you we'd be talking about ventilators today. Everyone's thinking about ventilators and the surge that is inevitably coming. What can we do about it? We want to talk some practical steps today about the ventilator guidances and to help to inform the efforts that people are doing. We're also going to briefly review the Medtronic package for the PB560 ventilator that was released. I think there's been a lot of confusion about what's in that package, and we'll sort that out today. Then we're going to do a Q&A. Maybe you have questions about something that's late breaking that you're wrestling with. We'll talk about that live. And then finally, we'll do another community open forum. If your company hasn't been mentioned or there's something new you want to tell us, please, this will be your chance. We want to hear from conveners. We want to hear from hospital systems. Thank you for your work. We want to hear from material suppliers, manufacturers, and folks working in diagnostics. These are all really important, and we want to hear from you. So with that, I want to talk a little bit about the news. The FDA has released this new EUA, an updated EUA, as well as a new guidance or enforcement document on face masks made in China, and also on some updates to face shields. A lot of us were asking questions. What do we do about face shields? They finally answered that today, so we're thankful for that. We also found out that FDA is holding a personal protective equipment webinar. Aaron can tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. Yeah, the webinar is going to be hosted on April 6th, so next week. And we'll put a link up on our webpage with how you can get access to that. There's no registration. You just show up and you listen to what FDA's current thinking is about the enforcement policies for the PPE information that they put out.
That's great. Thank you, Aaron. And we wanted to, again, as we did before, there were some great material connections being made last time. We had so many people reach out and say, thank you for these connections. I made contact with somebody I had no other way to get in touch with, and that was wonderful. I want to take a moment now also and celebrate a local success. Ann Arbor company Pneumatics recently got cleared for an EUA for their diagnostic test. And I believe I've got their president and COO, Sundaresh Brahmasandra, on the line. Sindhu, are you there?
Yep. Can you hear me?
We can. Thanks for being with us today. We wanted to just give you a chance to tell us all about what you guys have been up to, and it sounds like a great success.
All right. Thanks, Gene. So hello, everybody. And we are at Pneumatics down by the mall area. And Gene has helped us quite a bit in the past through Into Being as well, and so has Adrian. So we at Pneumatics have been working on emergency use assay. We submitted the validation data on March 20th. And in spite of the emergency, FDA was FDA. And so we had quite a few back and forths. And we finally got our authorization on the 30th. So it took us about 10 days of 3 rounds of reviews. But in the end, I believe we have a very good assay, we have a very good platform to implement this assay on. And we actually have about 6 sites that have gone live with our test right now. And while the number of sites might sound like a very few, these are Henry Ford in downtown Detroit, Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, as well as the New York State Lab in Albany. So altogether, just in the month of April, these sites will perform at least 100,000 tests using our assays and systems. So it's a great opportunity for us. Sounds like 5 seconds of fame, but more than that, it's really just an opportunity for us as IVD manufacturers to make a positive contribution at this point. And more than anything else, I'm very proud of all our employees who have continued to come and work, even though many of them are kind of scared of working in this environment, as well as our service engineers and application specialists who are traveling to Baltimore and Albuquerque and New York State, not worrying about whether they're going to get an infection, but really mostly worried about making sure the systems and assays are functioning. So that's my piece, Gene.
Wow, that is amazing, Cindy. Just a couple of questions for you. I mean, yeah, anyone who gets on an airplane right now deserves a medal under the current circumstances. What can you share with us? And again, don't say anything you're not comfortable sharing. We were looking the other day at the, and I just switched microphones, by the way. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We were looking the other day at, on the face mask side of the world, we were looking at Battelle's EUA, where they have a sterilization system. They're using vaporized hydrogen peroxide, and the first blush is, this is amazing, this is great. When you look at what the FDA put them under in terms of, they've got to have all the masks shipped to them, they've got to hand label them, there's all sorts, there's all these nuances. And again, without saying anything that you don't want to say or aren't comfortable with, but in general, where did you find the FDA's major pieces of scrutiny were for you, insofar as you're comfortable sharing them?
Yeah. Really surprised me was the FDA pushing us to make more aggressive claims than we were comfortable with. So
Seriously, wow.
yes, yeah. So this was a first for me. So we had a limited detection, of like 250 copies of RNA or something like that.
Yeah.
And they insist, because we had demonstrated 100% detection at 150. And so I kept pushing back, saying, that's really not your job. Your job is to accept what the manufacturer is comfortable claiming. And it was silly, because there are tests out there that are claiming a limit of detection of 100,000. And for us to be arguing about 250 versus 150 and waste 3 days was kind of silly. But in the end, I gave in. The second point was, we have two targets that we look for to confirm that it's the COVID instead of, some other coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
And say if only one of the two targets came up positive, we would like to call that an inconclusive result and have the user repeat the test. And we thought that that was the safe way to do, rather than unnecessarily call a whole bunch of false positives and have people quarantined for no reason. But again, they came back and said, no, there's a huge shortage of swab specimens. Million people being retested because you call it inconclusive. So we'd rather go ahead and call it positive. And worst case, we just make somebody stay home for 14 days. So it was a lot of weird little things like that. And unfortunately, the FDA, I don't blame them. They've pulled in a lot of different reviewers to do their EUA reviews. And our reviewer in particular almost looked like she didn't know the FDA guidance herself. And so we had to point out many times what the guidance was saying and kind of question what she was asking us to go and retest or rewrite certain things. And so I think they're trying to move as fast as they can. And it's like an oil tanker, right? So they're not very good at moving that fast. And it's kind of slow, because they would review, and it's all done via email. They won't get on a phone and help us hash it out quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of just sluggishness because of that. But it was just a weird, reviewer was inexperienced, and she was trying to provide review by committee at that point.
That's really interesting. Yeah, you're in a new world when FDA has, issued guidances over a weekend, for example. It's just, everything is strange. I think they're trying to figure it out as fast as we're trying to figure it out. We didn't actually talk about this before. Sindhu, if any of our audience here, we got about 100 people on the line. If any of them had any questions for you, would you be willing to field those right now?
What was that, Gene? You kind of broke up.
Sorry about that. I was just saying, if any of our attendees here had any questions for you, would you be willing to field one or two of those for us?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, if you're an attendee
Has any
and you can
questions?
hear me,
Yeah.
raise your virtual hand, and I'd be happy to patch you through here so that we can hear what your question is. All right, I've got Bill Wurtzel live. Unmute yourself, Bill, and you're on.
Okay, can everybody hear?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was just curious, Sandhu, as what your test, what makes up the test for you? I'm coming in a little late, so maybe you described that before. So how do you execute the test? What are you looking at?
What form of test is it? Is it an antibody test?
What form of test?
Yeah, great. Oh, do we still have you, Sindhu?
I don't know if it's my connection or.
Okay, so Bill's question was, what kind of test is the pneumatics test? Is it like an antibody test, or what is it?
Okay, the pneumatics test is a molecular PCR-based test. Two different markers to identify uniquely the COVID-19 strain relative compared to all the other types of coronaviruses out there. And we also have a control in there to ensure that the entire process happened correctly. But the beauty of the pneumatics test is all the reagents are room temperature stable. The system itself is completely automated. So literally, you take a nasal swab, dump it into a transport medium tube, and you load it onto the system. And as long as the system has the reagents and consumables to run it, it will just, we 606, it's about 220 test results on one system. So a lot of this is pretty much, we are, like I said, we are about 6 or 7 sites right now, and all of those sites have 2 or more systems on site. and they, not only that, they're all having 2 or more tests that they've validated, simply because they know every one of the manufacturers is going to go on back order at one time or the other. So they're hedging their bets and doing a pretty good job, the hospitals themselves, of making sure they have multiple options at any point.
That's it's probably wise on their part. I've got one more question. This one's from John Cunningham. John, you're on.
Thanks for taking my question. Just a couple other quick detail questions. How many reactions do you need to run, and how many replicates are you running? Are you just doing it one time? I asked because I talked to a Gene who's setting up Patel's lab. She's running 3 separate machines in parallel for each sample. But I talked to a Thermo Fisher rep yesterday, and they said their kit is validated for it's multiplexed per well, so it's they're getting 4 pieces of information out of a single well. So I just wasn't clear about what the sort of what the range of what the standard would be, best standard would be right now for balancing throughput versus reliability.
Great question.
I kind of heard paraphrase the question. So question is whether the multiple targets are being detected in multiple, or they're all in a single reaction.
Yeah, and I think how many replicates do you have to run, and is this you pop one thing in and look at one thing, or is this you pop a bunch of them in and then look at multiple things while you're in there?
So the way the CDC has the original serial process, so they made you run the first target. If that was positive, run the third target, and only if all 3 are allowed to call that as a SARS-CoV-2 RNA detected result. Whereas, and is still primitive because it was really based on very at that point, and it also has a lot of false of random coronaviruses. So most of the after that are all single reaction on one test, and you're getting multicolor information across multiple targets. And so you're able to make the decision based on this one test rather than a repeat or a reflex type operation.
Okay, I think we got most of that. There is something going on with the line such that it's sort of breaking in and out. So that's the great things about technology. We can now test, thanks to a Michigan company, for SARS-CoV-2, but we still can't do internet conferences very well. So
it's interesting because we are getting calls from, of course, the Michigan State Department of Health, Amazon to the CIA. So everybody's interested. The biggest challenge is really scale up. Small companies, not very good at scaling up, and we don't really have staff redundancy. So if somebody gets sick, we're really in deep doo-doo. So that's a general challenge I'm sure all of you are facing, and unfortunately smaller companies face that more. I was just telling somebody this is probably the only time that I've felt disadvantaged being part of a small company. It's just really hard to get manufacturing. You know, if the CDC comes calling and asks the probe guys to make, primary probe guys to make 5 million assays, they're going to do those. A small startup company asks them to make 100,000 assays. So those are some real challenges, but we'll things that we'll all have to deal with as we evolve here.
well, Sindhu, this is really phenomenal that you guys are out there and that you've got this EUA. I note that many of us knew each other during Handy Labs days, and we note that the BD Max did just get their assay cleared by an EUA, but you beat them by about a week, I think. So congratulations. Oh, did we lose you? Can you still hear us? Oh, I think we actually lost him there, but it's great to have Sindhu on. Great to hear what Pneumatics has done. They got that approved, I believe, on the 30th, and we all congratulate them. And thanks to our other callers for asking the questions. We are going to go on to some leftover Q&A from last time. We had some questions that didn't get answered, and we wanted to just take a moment and answer those questions. And I'm going to run through this list really quickly. One was from Rick Shorey regarding Battelle's EUA. Do regional hospitals need manufacturers to handle the shipments and receipts to and from Battelle? That was our understanding, is that they are between the hospitals and Battelle. Lindsay had asked, do air purifiers and negative pressure systems lie in the same bucket? As I recall, the FDA's EUA only includes air purifiers. We didn't see anything about negative pressure systems in that document. Somebody asked if UV lamps used to cure nails, shellac nails, would work for killing germs, and we want always to refer you back to the kill levels that are specified in that disinfection system guidance in EUA. FDA does have guidelines on how effective the device needs to be, even under these circumstances. We want to point you back in that direction. Give us a call if you get any questions. Same about dry heat. How much dry heat is necessary? Again, we need to go back and look at the kill specifications in those guidances. Miguel Gomez asked the question, would any proposed modification to existing ventilator connections to multiply its patient to unit ratio fall under the new invention category or adaptation under EUA? That's a great question. If it's for a specific ventilator, it would probably count as an adaptation. And again, that's covered in the ventilator EUA and enforcement guidance. There are multiple questions about 3D printed designs and have any been approved. And for this, we want to point you back to NIH. FDA even points to NIH in their guidance on 3D printing. NIH is maintaining a registry of devices that have at least been considered, designs that have been considered and relieved some level of clinical analysis. You can find a few things on there. Going over to Aaron for just a minute. Aaron, are these, is that NIH link up on the website at the moment?
Very good question. Let me double check. I believe I did include the NIH link on our resources link page. It's near the bottom under the 3D printing section.
So if you want to know what people are 3D printing and designs that are already out there and have been looked at, please take a look at that. Another question. We see a lot of opportunities on KN95 masks imported from China. Can you comment on the usability of those? You better believe it. We're going to talk about that in just a minute because FDA just today issued guidance and an EUA on stuff coming out of China. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. And I believe that's what we have on the questions from last time. If you have any current questions today, we're going to get to those in just a minute. Feel free to type those in the Q&A format, and our folks here at Into Being will go through those so that we can talk about them in just a minute. Next up, we are going to talk. Oh, you know what? There's one more question that we've gotten a lot, and that is, how do I get anyone to help me evaluate my ventilator concept or accessory concept that I'm working on? And it's kind of hard to get to doctors right now. We don't necessarily want to go bothering folks who are on the floor. They have more than enough to worry about. Once again, we are all so thankful for what our healthcare workers are doing and the sometimes inhuman conditions that they're enduring to serve us. Many of them are living away from their families. Today, I have Nikki Kennedy on the line, and Nikki is a vascular surgeon in the Metro Detroit area. And Nikki and I talk a lot, and she volunteered to be a point of contact. That doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get an introduction, but here's somebody who knows the space, knows innovation as well. Nikki, are you there?
Hi, Gene. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Good.
So what would you say to the person who says, I need some doctor help to help me evaluate some of the stuff that I'm looking at right now?
Great question. There are definitely docs who are interested in helping with this. And some of these are frontline docs who are just willing to take some time. I can't guarantee I'd get you a ton, but I've already had 2 or 3 docs just today after you'd reached out to me say, yes, I would be interested. My best recommendation would be to just send me an email. We can chat. And if it looks like we can try to hook you up with some other docs who are actually in the ICUs, working on the front line, trying to manage these ventilators, we'll absolutely do that. Docs realize how important this innovation piece is going forward. There are some health systems that are shying away a little bit from what I hear from the 3D printed pieces in terms of ventilator accessories. I think they're focusing more on actual ventilator machines. That's, again, I'm not speaking on behalf of a specific health system. That's just the word on the street. And then also, again, if there are groups out there that are able to secure PPD, we are looking for smaller suppliers. There are groups out there that just don't have enough, or people who want to get it themselves directly, because even though their health systems claim that they have it coming, they just can't get their hands on it. I was rounding today. I had to ask my nurse practitioner to give me a mask to wear to go see a patient because I couldn't find any in about 3 sections of the hospital.
Wow.
Of any kind. So there are individuals who are interested. I don't know if that's something that some of the suppliers here are looking to do, but a lot of the big supply chains say that they're good, but people are still demanding this. So if we can try to get you in touch, we'll happy to do that. So.
Nikki, thank you for volunteering for that. I think there's a lot of people who would love to reach out to you. If you can leave your email in the chat box again for folks from this call, that would be great. Let me just, before you leave us, and I don't know if you have any insight into this conversation I was having recently. A company manufacturing face shields wanted to get into a hospital system, and they started talking to a hospital system, and the third-party purchasing company with the hospital system said, well, we need to know all your FDA approval information, which pretty clearly at this point means that the purchasing company doesn't understand what's going on. And so they're actually going to be holding up shipments of perfectly decent face shields that folks might need because they don't understand the requirements. Have you seen anything about this, or are you close enough to any purchasing departments to have any suggestions for how folks could navigate that?
Well, unfortunately, it's going to be health system dependent. In the health system that I spend most of my time in, I reached out directly to the physician who's taking point on this. And he basically said, here's a form, have them fill it out and just send it to me. And that was all he really was looking for at that time. So it's challenging. There are some pretty set supply chains already. But again, same health system. One of my friends who's a nurse said he's been using the same N95 for 3 weeks now. So
3 weeks. We were hearing, well, a week ago, we were hearing you're going to use it for a day, and now we're hearing 3 weeks.
he's been using the same one for 3 weeks. He just told me today. And I
My
just
goodness.
heard that another health system in the Metro Detroit area just had a surgical resident die of COVID. I can't confirm or deny any details on that, but it looks like there is definitely a connection between how much exposure you get and how severe your illness is. So I think PPD is going to be pretty critical. And if there are ways we can get it out to people, besides going through normal processing chains, I think there are people looking for it.
Okay, so good advice there is to, if a doc is looking for something, they should be going and talking to their purchasing agents, not necessarily letting the purchasing agents define everything at this point in time.
Yeah.
That's great. Nikki, thank you so much for being here.
Anytime.
Nikki's contact information will be in the chat, and we'll pass that around. Please don't deluge her, but if you really do have a need to talk to somebody, she can act as a triage for that and hopefully make some connections for you. We're really thankful for that, Nikki. All right, I want to talk for just a minute about some of the community resources that we've seen thus far. You guys have been doing a great job of putting your information into different things, and we've been trying to adapt as we go because we've been making contact with tons and tons of you. So I want to try to take just a minute and talk about some of the things we've heard over the last 2 webinars. Then we're going to go back in and talk about ventilators as well as the new guidances out of FDA. I want you all to keep in mind that MEDC and Pure Michigan Business Connect have a portal where they are trying to aggregate folks who are both suppliers as well as in need of things. Pure Michigan Business Connect also has a conversion grant, if I understand it correctly, for manufacturers working to convert to produce personal protective equipment. You can look that up on the web at Pure Michigan Business Connect. Recall that the University of Michigan has an aggregating effort where they are asking folks to fill out a form. I believe we have that form on the website, and if not, call us, but they are trying to get everyone possible to list what they're doing and what they can help with. MishBio has a COVID response page at mishbio.org/page/COVID-19. Some other high-level things, americamakes.us. They are trying to aggregate maker information, especially on 3D printing, as well as the NIH 3D Print Exchange, which is 3dprint.nih.gov, which we were talking about a little bit earlier. Michigan Manufacturing Technology Center is really involved in this. It is reachable at www.the-center.org. And you can talk to folks there if you need help, especially with things like manufacturing conversion, if I understand correctly. Patrick Medato at Wayne State University says, if you're looking for collaborators for clinical testing, research, evaluations, physicians, etc., please feel free to reach out. You can get his contact information on any of the previous webinar details, and that's going to be true for everybody here. I'm not going to relist the contact information, but you can find it on the contact summary or the chat box summary from any of the previous webinars. Brandon McNaughton from Acadium Life Sciences is looking to test our nucleic acid sample prep technology. We're in need of a local site to perform QC tests of this product. I'm going to talk about some of our device leads, manufacturers, and material suppliers. Kurt Ivory from rpbsafety.com, powered and supplied air respirators, also working on face shields. Another face masks, medical gowns, disposable gloves, and virus testing kits at Robert Thomas at distributionsllc.com. attendees.com. Tyler Kipke over at RCO Engineering is making face shields with a high projected capacity here. Roca.com makes sport performance optics, and if you need something in front of your eyes, they're working on ramping into making things that folks can use in the med space. On the mask side, John Nanos, you can find his information, is working on domesticating an N95 mask. Bob Becker at ntfabricating.com is working on splash shields. Again, we just found out from Eric Eichhardt at The Right Place that Steelcase is manufacturing face shields now that they're not working on furniture. So you can look to Steelcase as well. We've heard a lot this week from Jerry Douglas at Innovative Air Management. He's become a key player in working to get materials and masks. I'd be interested to hear later, Jerry, from you if you are on the line with us when we go to our open forum. What troubles have you been having with the importation from certain countries? We'd like to hear more from you a little bit later. We've got Rollins7.com, which is RMS Medical Solutions, that has an oxygen mask that can be used with ventilators or face masks. We've got Boyer Steel, that is a source for aluminum and stainless. As well as if you're looking for masks and hand sanitizer, riversecurityspecialists.com, Richard Doherty. We also want to talk about our manufacturers in the state. Want you to go talk to Jim Metzger at Keystone Solutions Group. It's a full-featured product development and manufacturing floor over on the west side of the state. Keystone Product Development. Also, John Woodhouse over at MedBio, an amazing molder that we've worked with before. John Woodhouse over at medbioinc.com. Medisurge is another local manufacturer. You can reach them at allianthealthcare.com. As well as RTI Surgical, our friends up in Marquette. They already do class 1, class 2 devices, and they would be happy to help. We've also got contact in the list from both Gentherm that makes blowers that are repurposable, as well as from Roush, who is standing by willing to support with people and floor space. Our friends over at Siblings, that's CYBLLINGS, do 3D printing, and if you need a 3D printing resource, that's a great one. We also have folks at, we have I just want to call out a few folks that can help with regulatory stuff in addition to Intubing, and we'd love it if you came to us, but we're going to open this all the way up. We have our friends at MethodSense that are in North Carolina. We've got Nicholas Werner at Network Partners. So that's nicholas.werner at networkpartners.com. We also have our friend Kay Fuller at MDRS. Locally. So please reach out to any of us. I know we're all standing by to help and to talk to you about the things that are happening. And this is a time to get answers. So please reach out. I'm going to read you a few more of these things from our last webinar, just so that you don't have to read all the way through these documents that are been great, where people are putting their information in. Got Jeff Nelson at CIE USA doing face shields. We have a company named Altus in Grand Rapids that makes mobile workstations and carts to hold critical care equipment. We have, I just want to mention Stacy Frankovich over at MedHealth Cluster. She's a great place to make connections. Stacy, S-T-A-C-E-Y at techtowndetroit.org. John Gizak is in the diagnostic space, and he was going to be on this call. He can't be on the call today, but John was part of an effort that got Celex, their diagnostic, cleared to the EUA. He wanted us to know about athomepharmacy.com. They are distributing PPE and related products in Michigan in addition to their pharmacy work. We also have Kimberly Hankey with Elm Park Labs has a product that would be really good for training if you're trying to ramp up some remote training. And Kristen Armstrong from Midwest Pharmaceuticals says we do have some PPE in stock. So Midwest Pharmaceuticals for PPE in stock. Brianna Lewarne, I finally got it right, from healthfreelance.com, ramping up N95 masks and isolation gowns. And we also have Rob Reisner from GED GmbH Austria. They have FDA and EU certified masks, gowns, and sanitizers, all in quantity. The last meeting he said, oddly, I can't seem to find serious interest. So go talk to Rob Reisner if you need masks, gowns, and sanitizer. Again, I have to say none of these things that we're talking about today have we personally confirmed. This is just what you've told us. These are leads to follow. So I just want to say we can't necessarily tell you that these are good leads, but everyone that we've talked to thus far has been doing a great job trying to get the word out there and to make it known what they can do. So thank you all for that. It's a company called Towel Tracker at toweltracker.com that, as we're talking about sending masks back for sterilization, believes that they could help. Toweltracker.com. And we also have Joe Perot from, it says Universal Marketing, but apparently he has supply of masks as well. Universal Market at charter.net. We have Lisa Crandall from Valesco Pharmaceutical Services. They are working on diagnostic kits in their clean rooms, and they are working towards kit development, so Valesco Pharmaceuticals. Want to call out Gina Tuttle from Sturgis Molded Products. They are a medical device, class 1 medical device manufacturer. They have presses there at Sturgis Molded Products. And Brian Ignazak from Norma Group that makes connectors, plastic fittings, and metal clamps for products. Just going through here really quick, I think we mentioned the others that are here. I just want to mention one last one, Bahar Ali Akbarian from the Axia Institute at Michigan State University. Since we're wrestling with these value chain problems right now, one of the things they like to think about is distribution chain strategies. So if you have any of those kind of questions, Bahar would love to talk to you as well. And I think that's the update from our previous meetings. And just wanted to make sure we got those out there. If you didn't get listed or you have some new updates for us, please use the open forum coming up in just a little bit, and we will give you a chance to get your information out. All right, we are going to go over to the FDA's updated emergency use authorizations and guidance for face masks and materials from China, as well as face mask and enforcement guidance. So I'm going to share my screen again here. And I hope you're all seeing this. Someone can give me the thumbs up if that's working, or just let me know real quick from the staff.
Looks good.
Great. So FDA just updated its guidance on imported PPE, and this is a little bit of a pause or a caution. Situation is developing, but I'm going to take you down to one section in particular. It's really interesting. This was just issued today, so we haven't digested the whole document, but this does appear to be one of the main points in it. A disposable non-NIOSH approved respirator manufactured in China that meets one of the following criteria for authentication is eligible for authorization under this EUA. I think you can read between the lines, which is there have been a lot of materials and respirators being offered from China that maybe aren't meeting the requirements or can't be validated. And so, number one, it's manufactured by an entity that holds one or more NIOSH approvals for other models of FFRs produced in accordance with the applicable standards of authorization that can be verified by FDA. It's got a regulatory authorization under a jurisdiction other than China. We saw some countries listed in previous calls, Australia, Japan, the EU, things like that, Canada. It demonstrates acceptable performance or performance to applicable testing standards as documented by test reports from a recognized independent test laboratory that can be verified by FDA. So FDA is saying we're getting a lot of issues with materials and masks coming over from China. We can't prove that they're actually going to meet the N95 standard. Remember, that's a probabilistic standard. It's saying that 95% of the particles won't make it through. It's not saying it filters out every single particle. And there's some very specific requirements around that. Also, there's oftentimes, if you can't prove that the mask will withstand water, you actually have to put a valve in the thing. And so there's all sorts of requirements that come down to the health and safety of our healthcare professionals. And so just putting something out there isn't good enough. If you're going to call it an N95, it has to meet these standards. That's what FDA is getting to here with the manufactured in China letter. We're also going to take a quick look at this new enforcement policy for masks and respirators. We did touch on this last time, but it's been updated. And we are going to go down to this one section where it's really funny because some of us were on a call earlier today talking about face shields. A lot of you are doing face shields, and that's wonderful. Here finally is the guidance from FDA on face shields. And as before, they say that in general, we recommend that you follow CDC guidance regarding personal protective equipment. You also have to follow OSHA guidance, but FDA does not intend to object to the distribution and use of face shields that are intended for a medical purpose, whether used by medical personnel or the general public without compliance to the following regulatory requirements. Makes it pretty lightweight. But here's the thing, please include this. The product includes labeling that accurately describes the product as a face shield and includes a list of body contacting materials. If you printed that top strap out of PLA, make sure you list that. Make sure you don't try to include any drugs or biologics in it. That will not help the situation. The face shield does not contain any materials that will cause flammability, or the product contains class 1 or class 2 flammability requirement per 16 CFR 1610. Unless you label it with a recommendation against the use in the presence of high intensity heat source or flammable gas. So either put a warning on it or try to make sure that it's not going to burn. The product is not intended for any use that would create an undue risk in light of the public health emergency. So don't say that it's for antimicrobial or antiviral protection. Don't make a protection claim or a radiation protection claim. As always, none of this is legal advice. This is just us as medical device developers reading these and trying to help folks understand what's going on so that you can make your own decisions about how to operate under the current situation. But we are thankful for FDA's guidance on this. And if you have any questions about it, please don't hesitate to reach out. Okay, with that, we are going to go over to ventilators. And with respect to ventilators, we just want to share some practical steps, first of all. A lot of folks are there and they want to develop, they want to innovate. Like we said in the last call, FDA's guidance is really about adaptation, not innovation. I want to share with you just a couple of things that we saw on the article space. If I can get my screen to work here. This great article that someone shared with me, I think this was Ken Spencer over at U of M. Don't curb your enthusiasm, but be realistic about MacGyver ventilators. This is a good word of caution. This isn't just put it out there. These are devices that need to sustain someone's life. FDA has given us amazing latitude, but it's not complete Wild West. The reins have not gone completely off. So don't curb your enthusiasm, but be realistic about these. Also, this article that says, oh, look at that. It's not loading on my computer. The title is Have Some Level of Fear, How Scrapped FDA Inspections Mean That Hastily Made Ventilators Could Portend Product Problems. Again, this is important. Don't run away from this. Keep pressing forward. We're going to have a surge in the need for ventilators, but have some level of fear about what you are embarking on, because this needs to sustain someone's life. And FDA gives some good guidance in their EUA about the standards that you need to comply with if you're considering working on ventilators or ventilator accessories, or you're considering adapting a product to function as a ventilator. We talked about that on the last call. But we just want to remind you that if you have any questions about it or what's going to be expected of you, or how you can move forward in a reasonable way, please contact us. We can talk about it more
But this is a very important thing. We hope that folks do keep working on the ventilator problem. And many of you heard that Medtronic recently released the files for their PB560 ventilator. It's a little bit older model, but a solid one from everything that we've heard. And with us is Aaron Kerrer, who has been looking at that from our team. And Aaron's going to share a very short presentation just about what is and what isn't in those ventilator files. Then we might actually, with a screen share, crack open the folders so some of you can see what's inside of those ventilator files. We won't spend too long on that, but we'll just take a minute to comment on what is there, what isn't, and what the value or maybe some things that are missing are in those files. So Aaron, do you want to do a screen share with us of your presentation?
Let me get my slide set up. So, all right, can we see that?
We can see it.
Great. So yeah, we had a chance to download all the information that Medtronic had posted. They posted it across a few different days. So if you only looked at it last week, you might not have seen everything. And so we thought it'd be good to go through and just kind of from our standpoint, try to see what is there, what isn't there, what might be useful, what potential pitfalls or additional work someone would have to actually use the data that they've got. To start, let's just from the license standpoint, there was a couple of unique or interesting things that everybody should be aware of. The license has a limited term, and that all this information is open and available until either the end of the crisis or 2024. So that's one thing to be aware of if you're going to use this for any product development. You got to be careful about how that license affects you. And then a second note in the license is that any company that comes forward to put this ventilator or ventilators, based on this data on the market, is responsible for ensuring that they comply with any regulatory approvals or pathways that they would have to go through to put it on the market in their country. I think we do know from the EUA for ventilators that manufacturers are, there's a limit on how much of the design controls process that manufacturers have to go through to get ventilators on the market. So that's one benefit under the current situation. So here's a very high level view of what we think is and isn't there in the packet of information that Medtronic supplied. There are user needs. User needs and requirements and design specifications all seem to be, all that information seems to be there. They did list all of the standards that the system is that they tested the system for compliance. And but one thing is that the standards may not be up to date. So those should be reviewed in more detail to make sure that what's in there is actually current with the latest standard versions. They did not supply any of their risk file, so they do reference in some of the requirements a risk file where they did risk analysis. And they also did not provide any kind of a design plan. So that's one, from a design control standpoint, there's some expectation that you do planning for your development work. There wasn't any information on that. And a couple of big things is they did not supply any verification or validation, either protocols or reports, to show that the device actually met what it was supposed to be doing. So that's an area where if you were to move forward with this information to make a ventilator, that you would want to develop and run those tests on your own. So
that that really lines up with what we've seen on the people are keep asking us, you know, how do I know if I've got a ventilator that's going to meet what the docs need? And unfortunately, some of that, even though FDA might be waiving some of the requirements, still going to be the responsibility of the company to make sure that it does what they say that it's going to do with the standards help. Sorry, I cut you off there, Aaron. You're finishing your thought.
That's good. No, I think you said what I was going to say. So then one thing we can pull up, we can look at some of the files that are in there just to, if you're interested in figuring out what's going on a little more, you can kind of dig into that and see. So let's see.
And Aaron, let me ask you one thing really quick. We're getting some really bad clipping out of your audio, although we could understand what you were saying. Can I have you? I think if those are under the team folder right now. Let me bring them up on my computer and have you in that 30 seconds call back into the line on the phone.
Will do.
So I apologize with the audio problems there, but we'll get that going in just a second. In fact, I am not immediately able to pull those files up. Does anyone else from our staff, are you able to drop that over into the COVID-19 folder? Is that an easy thing to do?
Which files were you looking for?
That was the Medtronic files.
I don't know where they're at.
Okay,
Maybe
no worries there.
out of the folder.
We will, we had the audio problems that sort of set us behind there, but we will pull that back up towards the end. What we're going to do now is we are going to go out to you for Q&A.
Okay.
Either of things, Aaron, we're having a little bit of, oh, you're back. Does that mean your screen is back?
No, I had to switch over to my tablet.
Okay, we may have to do the Medtronic files a little bit later. We're going to keep going here because we weren't able to pull them up on another thing. But thank you for that presentation. That's very helpful. I think it does help to make the point that the standards compliance and the does this do what we say it's going to do is still the responsibility of any company. What Medtronic's put forward is very useful, but it doesn't address those questions. So you're going to have to take that responsibility if that's a direction that you want to go. And with that, we're going to look over to see what kind of Q&A we've got. Adrian and Rick, are you guys seeing questions in the Q&A chat?
Yes, there are 8 questions currently.
All right. Let's see. I'm looking over there.
Jane, you might want to look at the last one from Jerry Douglas at 229.
Okay, I'm not finding the FDA helpful in getting my EUA approval for medical face mask. What am I doing wrong? I'm not able to reach the FDA and only get a generic answer via email. What are my options? I have 10 million medical masks that need the EUA. Jerry, I think, I don't know exactly your situation, although I do remember some conversations that said that your materials might be coming from China. And that, of course, today, they just released the emergency use authorization and enforcement guidance that says unless you have standards testing or approvals in countries other than China, they're basically shutting down the door to importation from China. If I understand correctly, that's what they're saying based on our first read. So that may be the problem, is that unless you can come to them and say, I have these tests that I've done, I have an approval, that's what's happening there. Reach out, though. We're happy to talk more about that. Looking at my team, any other questions you want to highlight for us right now?
There is one from John at 226 from Detroit Engineered Products. They have a prototype ventilator for non-invasive breathing assistance and looking for feedback opportunity with medical community or ventilator experts before releasing for purchasing.
Okay, and there's certainly more that's going to have to be done there before release for purchasing in terms of standards compliance. But John, I mean, feel free to reach out to any of the folks who are doing regulatory stuff that we mentioned, including ourselves. Uh, if it's something that you can send a picture or two and a little bit of dialogue about, we've heard from some healthcare folks today who could potentially look at that. So don't know what level you're at or what the maturity level of that is, but we'd certainly love to hear from you. Any other questions right now from our team?
Just want to maybe confirm with Aaron if he knows if someone asked if the sterilization guidelines link is on our COVID-19 page.
Good question. Let me see what we got here. There is a link under sterilizers for the enforcement policy for sterilizers, disinfectant devices, and air purifiers. I had a conversation with someone last week about their UV-based sterilization system and pointed them to that one because it lists out the information the FDA would be asking for if you were coming to them with a new piece of sterilization equipment or disinfectant equipment.
That's good. And we see a UVC question here. UVC-based system for non-medically critical items used by first responders. Is there someone local in Southeast Michigan who knows how to validate effectiveness of our system? Unfortunately, this is submitted by an anonymous attendee, so I can't get anyone to contact you. You need to put your information in the chat box and we could have folks reach back out to you. The guidance for the PPE does contain the guidance for sterilization of PPE and disinfection. The disinfection guidance, enforcement guidance, has log reductions and things like that that you need to be thinking about. Those are things that you're right, you need someone to help you with. One of the things we've been hearing is that a lot of the test labs that could be helping with this are getting swamped. For an example, in the case of N95 masks, Nelson Labs is the only certified US test lab to do the pre-certification for N95s. And as you can imagine, they are backed up right now. Note from Valerie Obenshane, who is a respiratory therapist that we know. She says the American Association of Respiratory Care says not to use CPAP and BiPAPs that are converted into ventilators. They also say not to use a ventilator on multiple patients, although obviously we know people are doing that right now. It's good to know that that's not recommended from the American Association of Respiratory Care. Let's see, any other questions that look like high-level ones we should answer here live? Any others we can take offline and we can answer and follow up with folks, as long as you left your contact information. Don't ask for leads if you're an anonymous attendee. We need to get you into the flow so that we can respond to you.
Gene, there was one more that just came in from, I apologize for the name, Joe Edward Borges. Probably second to last from your.
Let's see, I do not have that window up. Can you read it for us, Rick?
Assuming a system that basically is connected to an AMB-UBAG to provide low-cost ventilation. Assume a system that basically drives one motor and reads the pressure sensors and motor position. How long would you envision a certification process taking?
That's a great question. There's a lot of people working on that AMBU-BAG pressure thing, and I don't think we have a good sense of that. You heard earlier from Sindhu that they went in 10 days for their rather complex DNA diagnostic test to clearance. So that's a good indication, but I don't think we know, and I don't think we know, of course, a company like Pneumatics has been working on that system for a long time. They have a lot of test results. They know what they're doing behind the scenes. I don't know in terms of the data that can be brought to bear, the standards compliance data, whether this group would necessarily have that in place to be able to offer to FDA on a moment's notice. So I think it's a highly variable answer to that question. But a good question nonetheless, and thank you for all your questions. Feel free to ask more as time permits. But now we're going to go to our community open forum and check-in. And again, we're going to give opportunity for 30-second check-ins with any of you, and we want to open it up a little bit more than we have in the past. We do want to hear from conveners. Those are large groups like we talked about, Pure Michigan Business Connect, MichBio, University of Michigan, others who are trying to bring people together. We want to hear from hospital systems as well, whatever you can tell us or would like to tell us, and we do thank you for your service. From material suppliers especially, as you've heard, mask material is at a premium right now. Manufacturers, we've heard from some wonderful manufacturers in the past, and we'd like to hear from any of you with that, as well as folks working on diagnostics who need collaboration connections to be made. So we'll go through that list really quick, and then if there's anybody else at the end, we'd love to hear from you. We'd also love to hear your ideas. We need ideas to come out, and we need people to be talking about what could be done or what else you need to be effective in the efforts that you're making. So let me, first of all, open it up to conveners, if I can get my computer to work here. Anybody who considers yourself a convener working in sort of a large context where you are maintaining a database or you're trying to put people together at a relatively large scale, that's who we'd like to have raise their hands right now if you have an update for us, if you're a convener. That'll be folks like at MEDC, U of M, MichBio. I see Rayanna, Lauren, I hope I got that right finally this time, but you're live.
Hey, Jean, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Rayanna.
So previously I haven't been on the large convener circle, but as of today I am. So I had recently had a conversation with the Ford Motor Company and Cardinal Health and got them connected to begin working together on face shields and N95s. But the request is from both of those organizations is for new suppliers that have access to the materials to produce the actual SMS N95 fabric, either from Japan, Australia, the EU, or of course the US FDA certified source materials. They're looking anywhere and everywhere outside of their traditional channels, and they did share some information that a lot of the SMS raw materials they're having difficulty getting because they've been embargoed in Taiwan and claimed by the Chinese government for themselves, which is also impacting their ability to get these materials. So any other sources they're opening themselves up to be introduced to and to vet those leads so that they can get as many materials as possible into the country.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's great. I'm glad you could do that work. You've also re-highlighted something that has been a big issue and will continue to be a big issue. Any other conveners that we have on the line who can tell us what's going on in your organization, in your network, that would like to tell us more? Raise your hand if you're there. I'm gonna mix this up just a little bit. I gotta try putting him on the spot. I've just opened up Paul Reiser's line. We always like hearing from Paul Reiser from Tech Town. He's probably chewing popcorn right now, but I just want to hear from Paul for a minute. If you're there, Paul, you could go ahead and unmute your microphone. Oh, it's horrible putting you on the spot in front of 80 people. Are you there? No, looks like Paul's not gonna take the bait, but we always love hearing from our friends over at Tech Town. So, okay, we're going on next to our friends who are at hospital systems. If you are part of a hospital system, we would love to hear from you. If there's anything you can tell us, we understand that there are things that you can't say, but if there are things that you are authorized to say or would like to make known, this would be your chance. So if you represent a hospital system, please raise your hand. Representing a hospital system, please raise your hand. Okay, no hospital systems on the line right now, or actually, I think there are many, but we understand that many of you have been asked not to talk publicly about what's going on, and we understand and we respect that. Let's hear from we're going to talk to our manufacturers, and I wanted to open that up to our manufacturers. Raise your hand if you represent a manufacturer who can help with manufacturing of PPE or anything else. We're going to go to Kevin Webb from Spartan Medical. Kevin, you're live if you unmute your mic. Kevin, just unmute your mic and then we'll be able to hear you. There you go.
Hi, Gene. Thanks so much.
Kevin, go ahead and turn your speakers all the way down or put some headphones on. I'm going to come back to you in just a minute. Kevin. Keep your hand up. I've got Ruslan Prayadin. You are live with us. Hope I got your name right. Unmute your mic, and Ruslan, you're on. Okay, we're having some issues right there as well. We're going to go to Andrew Kalinowski. Andrew, you are live. Can you hear us?
Hey, can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Hey, Andrew Kalinowski, Thunder Technologies. Thunder Technologies is a manufacturer of custom ventilator hoses already being used in the medical field right now. We can build to your design. My contact information is in the chat. We also do FDA custom gaskets built to your design. We'd love to help you out, made in the USA, and we are also retooling for PPE face shields, and we do have internationally sourced face shields on the floor, can ship 100,000 weekly. Thank you.
But you make ventilator tubing. That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Yeah, ventilator hoses.
Hoses,
yep.
Hoses. Okay, that's great. Thank you. I'm sure you'll have some people making contact with you. Thank you, Andrew, for that. That's great. We're going to try to go back to Kevin Webb right now. Kevin, are you there?
Hi, Gene. I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
That's much better. Thank you, sir.
Great. Well, thank you for reaching out. And definitely, we are a contract manufacturer out of Cleveland. We make diagnostic equipment and types of air delivery systems for our customers. So in that regard, we do not have any of our own product, but if there's any innovators out there that have a complete design and or something ready to scale up, definitely reach out and we'll start the conversation. Thank you so much, Gene.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it. Put your information in the contact form and people can come talk to you. Let's see, we are going to go next to Catherine Strumbos. Catherine, you're live.
Hi, I don't have a ear plug-in, so I don't know if this
You're fine at the moment. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So I'm with Alpha USA. We are actually an automotive supplier in Livonia. We are beginning to make face shields, and we'll have those available starting in a week.
That's awesome, Catherine. Thank you for that. Put your information in the chat box and we will look forward to sending people your way. I want to go over to my friend Adam Steinman at Gentherm. Adam, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
It's good to hear your voice.
We are still looking for more opportunities to provide blowers for for respirators, not for ventilators. So for powered air purifying respirators, our blowers have been sourced or are being considered as sources. And if we can provide more, we're at the point where we can make modifications, small modifications to fit housings and such. So reach out, contact us. I think the information's already been shared.
Adam, thank you for that. And really quickly, so you said you can make small modifications to fit housing. So that might include adding tabs to the blowers or things like that. What's the level of modification that you can make, or how much, I don't know what to call it, value add services could you guys do relative to design work or things like that?
Yes, absolutely. So the original reason we were being looked at by some automotive companies was because we had an off-the-shelf blower that fit their needs. And so those were in inventory. We could ship them right away because they weren't being used for trucks. Now with some other companies, they're looking at production, but they're not looking to produce immediately.
Okay.
They have a month to ramp up. So we have some opportunity to make some modifications to the design, order tooling if we can, and produce more different blowers. We do our own design, our own analysis, our own simulations. So we can make lots of different modifications, but we are limited to that what's the range? We're looking at 100, what is it, 100 pascals range of pressure that we can provide at maybe 14 CFM. So.
Great. Well, thank you for that. And I think if people are working on PAPRs, that's a great thing. We've definitely heard from healthcare workers that they would just love to have PAPRs because they can clean them. And that would be a wonderful thing. So thank you for that, Adam. Appreciate hearing from you.
You're welcome.
All right. I think I want to say we missed Andrew Kalinowski last time because something wasn't working. So we're going to go back to you, Andrew, for just a minute. If we, in fact, did miss you last time, are you there?
Hey, I'm still here. Pretty much the same thing as stated beforehand. We are manufacturer later ventilator hoses and tubing. So we covered this earlier, but I appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrew. I didn't have your hand lowered there, so I saw you again, but we do appreciate your being there because that's a really important contribution. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, we're going to try one more time with Ruslan Priyadan. You are live.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Gene, for coming back to me. Our company, AA Pharmacin, is a custom chemicals manufacturer. We are based here in Ann Arbor. We've been around since 2006. Generally, we work with the pharmaceutical companies on making active pharmaceutical ingredients. We have spare capacity now where we can make hand sanitizer per newly released FDA regulations. And so far, I have not gathered a lot of interest from folks. So if there is interest in custom compounded hand sanitizer, we are certainly here to help and can be up and ready to go within 24 to 48 hours.
That's really cool. So if people need it, you could make it. I have seen mostly people going out there and producing it without necessarily anybody asking for it. But I guess if folks know they need it, they could come straight to you. Ruslan, really quick, do you also provide custom compounding for other things as well?
We do. Most of them are chemicals related.
Gotcha. Great. Well, we really appreciate your letting us know about that. If people need hand sanitizer and want it made and can't get it elsewhere, they can come to you. Thank you, Ruslan, for that. We've got Richard Doherty. You're live.
Hi, Gene. I work with River Security Specialists, and also the consulting that I do is Business Idealism Group. That's where the N95 masks and that we're getting is coming through. But another company is called Rivers Fab and Welding. And so we pretty much anything made out of metal we can make. So we can do prototype work, we can do production work, and it comes down to if hospital beds, chairs, etc. If the drawings are already set up and people have them and they're FDA certified, because you know that needs to happen, then if they need something produced, we can do it.
Okay, Richard, thank you for that. We really appreciate it. Renee Henderson, are you with us? Just unmute your mic, Renee.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Listen, I know it was a question earlier, and I really have a question for the healthcare providers, if any of them are on. If they can tell us the real deal concerning one of our products is from China. It's the KN95. So I really would like to know the real deal as far as hospitals, how do they look at it? I mean, I know it was just put on the list or off the list. It is FDA approved, but do they really look at the ones from China? They look down upon them, the KN95?
It's a great question. Let me just give you a little bit about what we talked last time. So the FDA says if you're going to call it a KN95, it has to meet the standard that NIOSH has, that's out of CDC. It either has to meet that or it has to meet an international standard. But if you're not calling it a KN95, if you're not making particulate filtration claims, and you're selling it basically as a dust mask, there is no requirement for that standards compliance. FDA says that they don't intend to object to people distributing masks as long as they don't come with claims. So don't claim that it's going to filter a particular level. Don't claim that it's going to work for COVID. Don't claim that it's antibacterial, and a number of other things we've talked about in other webinars. And again, it's not legal advice, but this is just a basis of what we're seeing come out of FDA and interpreting it. KN95 is a standard that you have to meet. If you're going to call it that, it's got to be meeting that. And that's where the concerns about the stuff coming out of China is they're not able to currently validate a lot of the stuff coming out of China. But if you're not calling it a KN95 and you're not making any claims about it, and you want to distribute some cotton masks on your own thing, those, as long as you're not calling them medical devices or anything that would make them a medical device, FDA appears to be fine with that. So with that, we're going to go over and talk to material suppliers. You have heard how much we need materials, especially for masks, especially for those true N95 masks. Do we have any material suppliers on the line? Do we have anyone supplying materials? I was very thankful to hear about the ventilator hoses. That is a critical part. We're very thankful for Andrew for getting on the line. Any other material suppliers on the line who can tell us about your latest? I don't know if Jerry Douglas is on the line with Innovative Air Management, but Jerry, if you're still here, we would love to hear from you. Just raise your hand. Any other material suppliers? Just push the button and raise your hand if you're here. We would love to hear from you. You are the missing link to many of these problems. Any material suppliers? Joe Perot, you're on.
Am I unmuted?
You are unmuted.
Okay, I'm just following up from last week. Thank you for having me on. We have supply, for example, with N95 certified FDA masks out of St. Louis.
Okay.
If I had order today or on that, we could supply April 14th at minimum 500 pieces. So anybody who is looking for that, we have that available today to do that with that kind of lead time. Also for the NK95, we will also have that out of Cleveland in a it clears the certificate as you had just mentioned.
Okay, and I was just going to ask you that, Joe. We got to do a little bit of vetting here based on what we've said thus far. You're fully aware of the Chinese import problems, and you're saying that your stock is not. It's either not from China or it's from China with the proper documentation.
Correct.
Okay, Joe. I think you're going to have some calls afterwards. We need to get that info to our hospital systems and first responders. Thank you so much, Joe, for that. Any other material suppliers? We would love to hear from you if you're here. This is a critical thing. I also want to ask everybody else for next Friday. Do you know any material suppliers? Do you know anybody who is in the industry making stuff? Maybe before you didn't care about it. Maybe before you didn't think that foam products were that interesting or that filters were that interesting. Well, guess what? They're interesting today, and we need to hear from these folks. We are here in Michigan with the auto industry. There's a lot of stuff out there. We just got to get them connected. Dara Bennett, we're going to let you on here for just a second. Dara Bennett. Go ahead and unmute.
Hi. So I called them last time. We're a supplier of stainless aluminum tubing and pipe. But I just had a question. We sponsor a few college robotics teams that have reached out to us about using their 3D printers. Are they someone that could get on these conferences? They're very interested in helping.
Oh, they're welcome. They're welcome to join us. We would welcome them, and it's always great to cross-pollinate with people. I would also have you direct them to the NIH link that we talked about earlier, because there are some designs on there that people seem to be coalescing around that, you got to do your own due diligence, but anyone with a 3D printer, definitely spend some time with the FDA and NIH guidance for 3D printing. That'd be great. And thank you, Dara.
Thank you.
Cindy Wadnicki, you are now live.
Hi, thanks. Didn't think about being a material supplier until you said something about foam. We have a custom made material for one of our products.
Okay.
And it's a foam laminate. The exterior is like a nylon cordura. The middle layer is 1/2-inch foam, and the inside is a lightweight, smooth nylon.
Great, thank you for that. And that's a material you make yourselves?
We don't, but we have it custom made for one of our products.
And you have the supplier chain that works for that?
Correct.
Great, love that. Thank you, Cindy.
We have an open, a blanket order right now, so getting any supply of it should be no problem.
Nylon and foam. Let Cindy know. Thank you, Cindy. All right, we're going to go over to one more time to Andrew. Andrew Kalinowski.
Hey, I'm not trying to hog the spotlight here.
No, you're fine. The second time was on me, not you, so it's good.
No, it's okay. I just want to reiterate, because you said foam and I smacked my head. We manufacture custom rubber and foam, so
Okay.
we can get to the sheeting. We are putting it in our products. So FDA silicone custom gaskets for medical devices, and if you need bulk foam cut to your specifications, making face shields, please let us know. We're here for you.
That's great, Andrew. Thank you again for that. That was worth coming back for. We appreciate that. All right, I want to go to our friends who are working on diagnostics. If you are working on diagnostics and you have something to share with the group, please raise your hand. What are your needs? What are your efforts? Who can we find people to connect you with? If you're working on diagnostics, please raise your hand. John Cunningham, you are back live with us.
Hi, thanks, Gene. A couple things. First ask is looking to network with people that would qualify as a lab director for a high complexity CLIA lab. Could be sort of part-time by the glass or full-time. We're sort of investigating setting up a PCR-based diagnostic lab, but the main thing I want to talk about today, aside from the lab director need, is we're considering ordering the Celex serological test strips, and just interested in discussion around that, and interested in connecting with people that might be would like to engage our services in running those assays.
John, two things. One, who are you with?
Sorry, functional fluidics.
Thank you. And then secondly, what is your specific question about Celex? Is this something you just want connections for, or do you want to, is there a question you've got on here and we can have people raise their hands and try to answer it for you?
There's two questions. So I guess, so now Celex is FDA approved. So do we still, as a high complexity CLIA lab, do we still need to run a validation protocol, like a 5 positive, 5 negative sample protocol in the same way that we would without FDA approval, or can we basically receive the test strips and go? And then also, if we're actively benchmarking all the different products out there, but we're certainly interested to connect with other people that have information or information about the different products that are being offered or that are in the pipeline. And then lastly, certainly the use case and purchase orders and estimating demand.
Okay, what I'm going to ask is if anyone has an answer for John, if you want to raise your hand, we would also welcome you to talk. I'm going to go to Derek here in just a second. John, really quick, the one thought that's going through my head is, as we've seen these EUAs come out for different companies, the EUAs can be very, very specific and they can require certain things. So it's not entirely clear. You'd have to probably, as a first step, read Celex's EUA and see what guidance is in that for how the test will be distributed and used. I've got a hunch that you're going to find some of your answers in there. But if anyone else has an answer for John Cunningham's question, please raise your hand as well and we will get you in. John, I'm just going to leave your mic open for a minute in case somebody comes in, so we're still listening to you. I'm going to go over for a moment to Derek Redding. Derek, you're live with us.
Hi, Gene, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Derek Redding. I'm with Biosense. We invented a working non-contact electrocardiogram that can read an ECG through, let's say, a mattress cover or a seat cover and through clothing. And we've been working on bringing this to doing clinical trials in hospitals, and recently 2 hospital systems approached us about putting our technology in to monitor the healthcare workers as part of a research project to detect changes in the ECG prior to onset of viral infections like COVID-19. It's very exciting research. We're also working with the Scripps Institute down in Southern California. The other, we are looking for any suggestions of potential grants that we could apply to. We're in the process of applying for a BARDA broad agency announcement, and also another grant from American Heart Association. But if anyone has any suggestions of other grants that would work for this type of research project, please let us know.
That's great, Derek. Thank you for that. So you got a non-contact ECG monitor, and looking for people who can help to support that, presumably for early detection or things like that.
Yes.
If anyone's got any comments on Derek's need or John's question, welcome you to raise your hands. If you have any other ideas for the community, any other things, this is the forum, this is the chance to say, I think we should all be doing this. And maybe it's crazy, we promise not to laugh you out. But if you have a great idea, we'd love to hear it. And any other connections that you need made, please let us know. I'll wait just a minute for that. In case nothing else comes in, I just want to thank all of you for taking the time to be with us today. Once again, the response has been overwhelming, and it's great to see the community coming together. I want to thank Aaron and Adrian and Rick and Steve, who are with me behind the scenes, for all their hard work, as well as our whole team at Into Being, who's doing a phenomenal job under the circumstances. Thanks to our healthcare workers, and we're going to be with you again next Friday at 2 p.m. We're going to talk about any late-breaking FDA news, try to parse it for you. We may go back to the Medtronic files since we weren't able to cover that today, and just look at those a little bit. In the meantime, if you have any questions or comments, please reach out, and we'll look forward to talking with you. I guess until next Friday at 2 p.m., thanks again for being with us. Talk soon.